Hello! Today we are going to be talking about tropes in fantasy. Now, even though the title says how to avoid them, we're also going to be talking about how to do them well. Because it's not that tropes are a bad thing. Tropes can be a good thing when done properly. The problem is when they are done so many times improperly that people start viewing them as a bad thing. Tropes are not meant to hamper us or dampen our writing abilities. They're meant to enhance it. We're meant to take something and make it unique and original and put our own spin on it. That's the whole point of a trope. But unfortunately, a lot of people say, oh, the trope is you do X, you do Y, you do Z, and you do it terribly. And then that's it. That is not a trope. That is why tropes have gotten a bad rap. But that does not mean they have to continue to get a bad rap. They can improve and progress. That being said, we're going to start up with a classic fantasy trope, damsel or sir in distress. Now, the reason I say or sir is because the damsel in distress trope, a lot of people thought, oh, well, I'm going to be unique and turn it into guy's in trouble and lady has to save him. And that was great for the first about 5 books. Now it's once again become kind of a tired old trope. Now, if you want to do that, that's great, that's fine. Like I said, it's nothing wrong with the trope. The trope is a beneficial tool that you can use, but you need to use it as just that. It's a tool, not the sole purpose of your art. You're not taking it and saying this screwdriver is art. What you're doing is you're saying I'm going to use this screwdriver to make art, or this paintbrush, whatever you want to use for the metaphor. Point is, it's a tool, not the art by itself. As a result of that, with damsel or sir in distress, I would say the best thing you can do is make sure you put your own unique spin on it and make sure that they aren't entirely helpless. The problem with the damsel or sir in distress trope is the fact that most of the time it's like, oh, please save me, I am weak and frail. And it's like, does anyone actually think that about themselves? I don't know about you, but most people I know, when they get kidnapped, doesn't matter how weak and frail they think they are, they're going to try to get out of there. Doesn't matter if both legs are broken, they're going to try to crawl. If they've been kidnapped by someone, especially someone dangerous who's threatening to kill them, they will try to get out. That being said, if they are particularly like delicate in nature or whatever, you can demonstrate that, but you still don't make them completely helpless. They're still going to try to fend for themselves. Whether or not they do it successfully is a different story. But they're going to at least attempt to help themselves to get better and to get out of that situation. Alright, next one. The orphan main character / the parents die in the very beginning main character. Now this has been done, again, just so many times terribly that the people who do it good don't get good enough praise, in my opinion. That's why you want to be one of the good ones, because then that way people can say, this is how it's supposed to be done, and it feels unique, and people feel like, dang, that was good, instead of feeling like it's just another one of those. So, the problem with the orphan main character is the fact that most of us cannot relate to that. Yes, there are orphans in the world. Yes, is it sad? That's awful. Agreed. Yes, do they need representation? Absolutely. But there are also an awful lot of us who have parents. Whether they're good parents, bad parents, in-between parents, who cares? Whether they're straight, lesbian, doesn't matter. The point is we have them. So it's important to give that representation of actually having parents who are present in people's lives, in the main characters' lives. They're not just like, you do whatever, hun, bye. Anyone seen Pokemon? 11 years old, bye, forever. What? No. What? Does anyone not see a problem with this? And this happens a lot in literature, where the main character is either completely an orphan, and so the benefit of this trope is that it allows people to completely cut all ties. It allows people to say, hey, guess what? I don't care anymore. I don't even have parents, so it's not like anyone's going to care. First of all, there's a big problem with that if they're living in modern society, but that's a different story. Then you also have the parents dying thing. Again, I think it's because people feel like, oh, well, if they have parents, then they can't go do these risky things, because good parents wouldn't let them do that. Well, you could also just have the parents be very responsible parents anyway and not have them do those things. You could have them do dangerous things without their parents knowing and have the repercussions of their parents finding out and being like, how could you? You're in danger. Or you could have them be a neglectful parent and be like, sure, whatever. You go do anything, in my opinion, even though they act like the Pokemon mom's great, she's a little neglectful. But then again, it's from a different culture. Maybe in Japanese that's perfectly normal to send your child off at 10 and expect never to see him again and travel the world. I don't know. But with that being said, the reason that people kill off the parents and have them be orphans is so they can do all these dangerous things. But that just because they have parents doesn't mean they can't do dangerous things. Kids do loads of dangerous things all the time, even when they have parents. You just got to make sure you have a reason for it. And you got to make sure there's a point at which you acknowledge, yes, the parents wouldn't let them do this. But that doesn't mean you can't have parents. Parents can be a very crucial part of your writing. Or, like we said earlier about making sure we mend these tropes, if you're going to do the orphan, you got to address the problems with being an orphan. A lot of people tend to beautify or glorify being an orphan. Being an orphan isn't all that great. It actually sucks. I mean, I'm not an orphan, but knowing people who are, it's terrible to not have parents. It's really hard to go through the foster care system and all sorts of things. It's a really rough life. It's not as glamorous as everyone makes it seem in the writing. Parents dying, that's really hard. Oftentimes people don't address the grief in the book. They maybe are just like, I'm sad. But they don't truly address the real grief that is happening and would be happening in that book. Unless the parents, in which case, are abusive, in which case you can have them feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm free of their abuse or something like that. In that case, then that's different. That's, again, a different spin on this trope. Most people, I would say, will probably relate more likely to the good parent trope, but that's more likely because of the fact that most people who have good parents have the time to read, whereas people who are being abused and don't have good parents don't have the time to read. So just keep that in mind. May not be as relatable. But not to say it's not relatable. There are lots of people out there who need literature like that to help them feel seen. Alright. I know it's a very sensitive topic. The next one that I'm going to talk about for tropes is, wow, I'm really taking up time here, more than I thought. Being the greatest of all time. I'm going to meld this with the next one, which is magic solves all problems. They're immediately good at magic, and they're like, bam, guess what? It solves all the problems. Or, if it's just greatest of all time, they're the best swordsman, they're the best this, they're the best that. They probably weren't the best all the time, first of all. That tends to be a big problem when they're just like, they're immediately good right off the bat. They don't have to be the best of all time to be a hero. There are lots of heroes in modern day society who aren't the best at what they do. They're by no means perfect, but they are a hero anyway. We need more heroes who are flawed, not heroes who are perfect. That's my opinion on the greatest of all time trope. If you're going to do the greatest of all time trope, though, explain why they're the greatest of all time. And make sure that they have maturity and seniority, and they're not just 10 years old and immediately the greatest of all time. Sorry, not going to happen. That being said, the magic solves all problems trope, in that same vein. You want to make sure that your magic system has limits and has the ability to be extended or be withdrawn. It needs to be flexible. It needs to, not too flexible, you need rules. But my point is that your magic can't just be like, poof, I snap my fingers and I'm done. It's no different than Disney's Genie, where he's like, I can't bring back the dead, I can't make you fall in love with someone, and there was one more. There was 3. You can't wish for more wishes, there you go. So magic can't solve all your problems. You need to make sure that your problems are both magic solvable and unmagic solvable. You need to have a balance of both. Alright. The next one that we're going to talk about is the chosen one / reluctant hero, because they tend to come together. Oftentimes because the person doesn't know they're the chosen one, and so they want to be normal, and then all of a sudden, guess what? You're not normal. That being said, the reluctant hero, the main problem is the fact that yes, there are reluctant heroes out there, but there are also people who are like, you know what? Seeing people in danger and in trouble makes it so that I want to help them, no matter what. Oftentimes people like the idea of helping other people, I would like to think. There are some people who are selfish out there, but people oftentimes like helping other people and like being able to be there for people. So if someone's like, hey, I'm the one who can fix this, sure, is that a heavy burden? Is that like, holy crap, I don't want to deal with this, I just want to be a normal person? Yeah. But there are people out there who want to help and want to have the power to help. Think of Captain America. He was sitting there the whole time just being like, you know what, I don't want to be a normal person. And sure, once he realized he wasn't a normal person and they did a whole stuff with him, Yeah, that didn't exactly go the way he planned, and he didn't realize that it would come with so many drawbacks, like not being able to be in love normally and different things like that. But did that make him any less of a desire for heroism? No. So there's the chosen one / reluctant hero. With that being said, there's obviously a bunch of ways to fix the chosen one trope. Just like I said, make it your own, make it unique. Don't make it like everyone else's. The next one that I'm going to talk about is they succeed at everything, or their failures don't really have any meaning. This goes back kind of to being the greatest of all time, where they're just like, immediately off the bat, I know how to do magic, and I know how to do it perfectly. Or if they fail, it's like, oh no, so-and-so died to sacrifice for our cause, and I could have stopped it. And instead of it being like they sacrificed for their cause and it meant something, it's just like their death meant nothing, and I could have just solved everything if just they hadn't have done that. And it's like, what is happening here? Ego. On top of that, if they fail, they need to be affected by that failure. They need to overcome the failure. They can't just be like immediately, I'm totally fine because I have to be because I'm the hero. Now, if they feel like I'm totally fine, but I have to be because I'm the hero, there's a different tone there. One is like ego, and the other is like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened, but I have to keep pushing forward because if I don't, I'm gonna explode, and no one else is gonna save them. Now that's a different type of ego. That's more of a chosen one burden trope. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. A lot of people feel like this is the only way I have to do things. They feel trapped for whatever reason. Just make sure you explain why they feel trapped. Alright, the next one is specifically a romantic fantasy trope, where you have the nice villain who, is very attractive or whatever. I don't know. I don't personally get this trope. But it's okay to have a villain that is redeemed, and then the person is like, I love you, but you're redeemable, like you're rough around the edges, but you're redeemable. Sure, we like that. What we don't like is when the villain goes and kills off a whole village, and then she says, but I love you anyway. And it's like, honey, no, there are many red flags with this. Now, if you explain that she has red flags beforehand, it still would have it be a side character. If you're doing this with the main character, that is not relatable. Most of us, if someone is a true murderous psycho, we're not gonna go, I love you. We're gonna go, stay the heck away from me. Okay? No? No serial killers. Thanks. No. But I see this a lot in romantic fantasy, where they're like, well, I want to make the villain redeemable, so she's gonna love him, and her love is gonna fix him. Honey, no. Absolutely not. There are many problems with this. The only way I think it can be done well is if she is absolutely naive and a side character. Main character, I don't feel it really can be done well. Feel free to challenge me and do that, and if you do, I'd be welcome to read it and see if you executed it well. But it's incredibly difficult. Not impossible, but incredibly difficult to make a main character relatable and also fall in love with a psychopathic villain. That being said, next one, no training montage, but then you suddenly have control over your powers. Like, one day you're like, I have no control, and the next day you're like, I am in perfect control. Eesh, this is a problem. The reason this is a problem is because we like seeing the try and fail cycles. We like seeing people struggle to succeed, because we all struggle to succeed. It's part of being human, unless your character is an elf or a dwarf or some sort of other race that somehow makes them an exception. And even then, I would say this isn't a good rule to abide by because of the fact that it makes them unrelatable. Can you still make them a likable character anyway? Yes, but that means that they don't feel as real. Whereas if they have failures, we're like, oh, they're just like me. And you can see them progress and see them move through it. That would be the best way to do it, in my opinion. If you're going to do that, I have no control over my powers and now I have control. You've got to make sure that you see the training montage. And it has to be at least a week, and if it's a week, they have to be training pretty much all day, every day. In my opinion, if they have absolutely no control over their powers, that's how it has to be. If they have a little control, maybe a week, and they're only doing a couple hours every day. And if they have almost entirely control in the beginning, there's other problems there. You can't have control of your powers immediately. The reason why is because we don't normally have powers as people, so you're going to have failures and problems and flaws just naturally occur. It'd be no different than someone saying, here, paint watercolor, and you've never painted watercolor before. You're going to have hiccups and struggles. So you gotta make sure you show that in your own writing. Alright, we have so many other things to go over, so I'm gonna try to see if I can wrap it up by the 20-minute mark. Alright, the next one is Teenager Saves the World. I am all for having a teenager who's empowered and saves the world. True. But you gotta make sure you explain why they are the only ones who can save the world. Why didn't an adult do it first? Because more than likely, the percentage chance that a teenager saves the world instead of an adult is very, very high. So you gotta make sure you explain, why didn't the adults save the world first? Why does it have to be a teenager? As long as you explain that, I feel like it works out okay. The next one is absolutely no redemption arc for your villain, and yet they're redeemable anyway. You gotta make sure that the redemption arc is double however long it took you to incriminate them. If it takes you a whole book to incriminate them, it's going to take 2 more books to redeem them. You can't just immediately redeem them at the end of book 1. Just be like, I've spent all of book 1 making them a horrible person who murders everyone, and now they're redeemable in the last 3 pages. Absolutely not. You got to make sure that redemption arc is well earned. If you want to have them be like hypnotized or under mind control or being manipulated, that's fine. But then that means they're not the true villain. If they are the true, undying villain, you gotta make sure that their redemption arc takes twice as long to redeem them as it does to have the first one. Now that being said, that advice actually came from a very fantastic junior fiction author, Riviera, oh no, I lost her last name. But she did Desert of Souls with C.C. Rios. So if you look that book up, you'll know who I'm talking about. Alright, next one is lost family member / twin comes into the picture and it either ruins everything or saves everything. Okay, it's usually not going to be one or the other, it's usually going to be a gray area. Having a new family member / twin is going to blow your mind. Some people might be very excited, some people might not be very excited, but the more than likely you're going to have just as many successes as you're going to have problems with this. As a result, you need to make sure that that relationship is well earned, well balanced, well shown. It's not just poof, they're the problem, or poof, they're the solution. It needs to be deliberately shown, and the relationship needs to be developed, and it also needs to be foreshadowed. You can't just have a twin come in book 3 that you've never foreshadowed. I know that people like twists, but they don't like twists when your feet are knocked out from under you. That's a bad twist. They like a twist that makes them make a 180 and go, gasp. But they're kind of like, they heard footsteps behind them, you know, they felt a chill in the back of their neck, they saw a shadow, you know, different things like that. That means that when they turned around, yes, they're shocked by who it is, but they're not shocked that they were there. That's the thing with that. Alright, the next one is, all I needed to do was believe in myself trope. Now this is true. There are a lot of people who all they need to do is believe in themselves, and they can do fantastic things, and the second they believe in themselves, they can. However, that doesn't mean it's perfect right away. Usually there's still a struggle, it's still a rough thing. You still have to explain why it works to just believe in themselves. If they are just like, I just believe in myself and I can lift that car. No, probably not. However, if they're like, I'm too afraid to use my super strength, but they're in danger, so I just have to believe that I can save them. There you go. That's a little bit more leaning towards that. Again, it's a little rushed. You probably don't want to rush this. You want to foreshadow the fact that it's holding them back. Not believing themselves is holding them back from their full potential. That will help make it feel less like a problem. Alright, the next one is when the friend betrays them for absolutely no reason. No, again, foreshadowing. Foreshadowing fixes this problem every time. If you properly foreshadow the friend betrayal, it can be a great twist. But if you don't foreshadow it and they have no reason to, no motivation, they just are, problems everywhere. Alright, the next one is getting revenge for your, deceased lover. Again, this is a romantic fantasy trope. I'm all for that. Getting revenge for your lover if someone killed them. Absolutely. I would want to kind of be, a little biased towards that. If my husband was killed by someone, I'd be like, revenge for him dying, for sure. Yes, I'm a good citizen, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't be tempted by it. I think everyone would be if your lover was truly killed by someone that you could conceivably go and fight and win. However, with that being said, you gotta make sure that you give the depth of grief and other emotions there. There's not just gonna be immediate revenge. There needs to be a lot of other things going on with that grief, and you need to demonstrate all the layers that go into this situation because it's a deep, heavy situation. The next one that I'm going to talk about, I'm really cutting it close, but I have two more, is an immortal person and a young person falling in love. Now, if it's like elves, where they don't reach maturity until a certain age, so technically they're the same maturity level and same age physically because they age differently, okay, that's more acceptable. However, if it's I'm 1,000 years old and I don't look it, but I've definitely absolutely lived the same amount as you, in like that amount of years, and then times a million, or however long they are old, that's borderlining on pedophilia. It feels creepy, it feels weird, especially because of the fact that they are very much at a different maturity level and they're basically a baby. Doesn't matter if they're 16 or 20, they're basically a child. I will say with this, you just have to basically develop the relationship, in my opinion. Again, this is a finicky topic, so if you just want to steer clear of it altogether, I get it. I would steer clear of it too. But you've got to explain why it works or why it doesn't work. And you can't just be like, because they're in love. That's not a good enough reason. You got to make sure that it solidly makes sense for both of them to be in love. And you've got to build up that relationship. And you've got to make sure that he's honest and upfront with her about all of his past. Or she. It just tends to be the guy for some reason. Don't know why. Alright, last one is medieval / Tolkien mimic. Now the reason I say this is because so many fantasies take place in a medieval universe. Nothing wrong with that. If you want to do your own unique medieval universe, go for it. If you have a different magic system, go for it. However, the problem comes in when you're just like, oh, it's basically the Tolkien universe, but I spelled orcs differently. Or, oh, it's basically just your average medieval universe, but this person is really cool and makes cool swords. And it's like, okay, what makes this unique? Again, I'm going to say the same thing I said in the beginning. With medieval and different things like that, you got to make sure it makes it unique. And when I say unique in all caps, italicized, and underlined. It's not just it's spelled differently or, oh, they wear cool cloaks. It's got to be they have an entire cult going on and it's crazy and they have to break out. That's entirely different. That's unique and new. Whereas just being like, I spelled orcs differently, not so much. Actually quoting from Brandon Sanderson, who read over someone's stuff and was like, this is basically just Tolkien with orcs spelled differently and different characters. Problems. You gotta make sure your world is unique and your own. Alright, sorry to run over time today. I hope you enjoyed the little overtime that I did. Make sure that you subscribe if you aren't already, and if you're interested in the monthly meeting for Adult Writers Club, that is going to be on the 28th, I believe, of this month, from 8 to 9 p.m. here. So make sure that you're ready for that. And November coming up is a first chapter contest, and then December is going to be a cozy mystery contest. So I'm very excited for that. Thank you. Bye.